The world is now endless oceans after the ice caps melted. People live on floating atolls, believing in a place called Dryland. A sailor called the Mariner, with special abilities, meets Helen and Enola. Keep watching to know how they go on a dangerous journey to find Dryland and escape enemies. The movie took place in the year 2500 when the polar ice caps melted completely. Sea levels rose over 25,000 feet, covering almost all of Earth's continents. The remains of human civilization had to adapt to the new world. They lived on rough, floating communities called atolls, having forgotten about living on land. People believed that a mythical place called Dryland existed somewhere in the endless ocean. In another part of the ocean, a lone drifter known as the Mariner sailed the Earth in his trimaran, which he built from random scraps. He survived by recycling his own urine for drinking water and spent his days searching for treasures at the bottom of the ocean. While he was diving, someone entered his boat and stole the fruit from his small lime tree. As he came back to the surface, the Mariner noticed another boat with a drifter on it. The drifter told the Mariner about an atoll settlement that was 8 days to the east, where he could find supplies. However, the two men chose not to trade when they saw a gang of pirates known as the Smokers nearby. The Smokers quickly headed toward the floating bag of goods that the Mariner had found earlier. As the drifter sailed away, he admitted that he had stolen the Mariner's limes. Furious, the Mariner activated a special mode on his boat, raising the sail and speeding up to recover his bag of goods. He then sailed right over the drifter's small boat and smashed it, leaving the drifter to the Smokers. After sailing for many days, the Mariner finally reached the atoll. At first, the guards did not let him in, but they changed their minds when he showed them a jar full of dirt, which was the most valuable item at that time, in exchange for other supplies. Once inside, the Mariner discovered that the people in the atoll lived in poverty and hunger. He parked his boat and met the atoll's enforcer, who gave him 2 hours to finish his business. In the market, a merchant offered him a lot of money, called chits, for his pure dirt. And they finally made the trade after he demanded double the amount. Meanwhile, a man named Nord asked an old man about a girl with tattoos. It turned out that the tattoos had markings showing where Dryland was located. Nord then spotted the girl, Enola, being cared for by Helen, a local barmaid. Soon after, the Mariner found the store and used his chits to buy Hydro, a tomato plant, and all the supplies on the shelves for his boat. When he went back to his boat, a family suddenly asked him to take their daughter with him so that he could make her pregnant, because inbreeding in the colony had caused problems with their children. However, the Mariner refused for some reason, which made them suspicious of him. As a result, the residents of the atoll quickly captured him before he could leave. One of them noticed that the Mariner was a mutant, having gills behind his ears and webbed feet. Terrified by this mutation, the guards attacked him. The Mariner fought back until he got caught in a net and was locked up until further notice. That night, he found himself in a cage hanging above the docks. While a group of young people searched his trimaran and stole some of his things, the Mariner saw Nord sneaking out of the atoll in the distance. Meanwhile, Helen talked to her friend Gregor, an unusual investor who desperately wanted to find Dryland. Helen said they should leave as soon as they could to protect Enola because people started to talk about the girl. However, Gregor, feeling frustrated, said they could not leave until he read the map to Dryland that was on Enola's back. Besides that, the girl's past was also a mystery because she loved to draw pictures, many of which she did not understand. Later, Enola innocently mentioned that the Mariner might know how to read the map. Because of this, Gregor approached the Mariner and began asking him about his mutations. He also asked if the Mariner knew where Dryland was, but their conversation suddenly ended when the enforcer appeared, and Gregor left him. The next morning, the elders gathered around the Mariner and decided to recycle him by drowning him in a pit of organic sludge. At the same time, a lookout from the atoll spotted a large army of smokers, led by the deacon, coming to their settlement to find Enola. Luckily, they called off the Mariner's execution as the residents began to panic about the attack. When the smokers started their attack, Helen tried to escape with Enola using a hot air balloon made by Gregor, but the balloon launched too early by mistake, leaving Helen and Enola behind. After that, they saw the Mariner, whose cage had fallen into the sludge pit during the attack. Just before he drowned, Helen quickly set him free and insisted that he take both of them with him. The Mariner immediately got onto his trimaran while Helen and Enola opened the atoll's gate as a way to escape. Meanwhile, the deacon saw them fleeing, so he ordered his gunmen to stop them. However, the Mariner shot his harpoon and dragged the gunman's boat, causing the deacon's boat to explode. As a result, the mariner, Helen, and Enola escaped safely, leaving the ruined atoll to the smokers. Inside, the doctor gave the deacon a prosthetic eye after he lost his eye in the last battle. But it did not work well, so the deacon decided to wear an eye patch instead. He then checked the ship's oil supply and saw that it was getting dangerously low. Therefore, the deacon quickly stated that their main goal was to find the tattooed girl, so he sent out a plane to search for her. In short, Helen and Enola became worried on the boat as their supplies kept running low day by day. At one moment, when the mariner found Enola's drawing on his boat, he got very angry and decided to throw her overboard. Helen screamed loudly, saying that the girl could not swim, so she jumped into the water after her. Luckily, the mariner decided to give them a chance to survive and went back to pick them up. At that time, a plane from the smokers, sent by the deacon earlier, spotted their trimaran. To keep their location hidden, the mariner got ready to fire a weapon from below deck. However, Helen quickly shot the harpoon at the plane, killing the gunner and tying the plane to the trimaran with a metal rope. The plane started to circle around the boat, slowly damaging it. Because of this, the mariner had to climb up the sail to cut the rope, but the pilot managed to shoot the rope first to escape. The boat suddenly moved forward, and the force threw the mariner into the water. Furious, he held Helen down and cut her hair angrily, warning her not to touch anything on his boat without his permission. When Enola protested, he also cut her hair and took away all her crayons, so she could not draw on his boat anymore. After returning to their base, the pilot told his boss where the girl was. The deacon was very happy to hear this. He confidently guessed which way they would go and ordered his crew to intercept them ahead. Later, the mariner saw another drifter with a neutral flag. Seeing this, Helen persuaded him to trade with the man, saying they really needed food. While they were trading, Helen tried to make a fishing rod. The drifter said he had paper, but the mariner didn't have much to give in return. So he asked for half an hour with Helen. Even though she protested, the mariner agreed, and she went below deck with the strange man. Meanwhile, the mariner quickly read the paper but didn't find anything useful after reading it. So he went down and told the drifter that their deal was off. The man got angry and tried to attack the mariner. Helen came back to the surface just as the fight started, and the mariner won. He then threw the drifter's body into the sea and searched his boat for useful items. Hungry for food, the mariner took Helen's fishing rod and threw it into the water, telling her she would not catch anything with it. Instead, he showed Helen and Enola how he searched for food. He took his harpoon gun and dove into the water as bait. When a big mutated shark tried to swallow him, the mariner used the harpoon gun to kill the fish and cooked it for the three of them to eat. After they ate together, Enola looked at the mariner's webbed feet and wished she had feet like his so she could swim. The next morning, the mariner taught her how to swim, and Helen watched, admiring the bond they were forming. Several days later, the group reached an outpost for repairs. When the mariner tried to talk to the lookouts in the tower, they did not respond. This made him suspicious, so he used an underwater periscope and saw that the smokers were hiding underwater to attack them. At the last moment, the mariner realized this and turned his boat to escape. They barely got away, even when the deacon shot at them, wounding the mariner. Not long after, the mariner wanted to know why the smokers were chasing them. Helen finally told him that Enola had a tattoo on her back that led to Dryland. But he insisted that Dryland was a myth, saying he had sailed farther than anyone but had never seen it. Later, Helen angrily asked him about all the things on his boat that no one had ever seen and demanded to know where he got his dirt. The mariner then showed her a homemade diving bell and took her to see the underwater ruins of the sunken city. He also showed her the dirt he sold at the atoll at the bottom of the sea, confirming Helen's belief. When they came back up, they found that the smokers had caught up to them, threatening to kill them if they did not give up Enola, who was hiding on the boat. The deacon pretended to kill the others by shooting his gun in the air, and Enola revealed herself, but the smokers captured her. Holding Enola, the deacon ordered his crew to kill the mariner and Helen while burning the trimaran. Fortunately, the mariner escaped with Helen by diving underwater to avoid capture and kissed her so they could both breathe. When they surfaced, they found that Enola was gone and their boat had been destroyed. For the first time, the mariner opened up to Helen, sharing his loneliness over the years. Without hesitation, Helen kissed him, and this time he kissed her back. The next morning, the mariner searched below deck for anything useful and found Enola's drawings of different dryland objects, including trees. He then looked through his collection of National Geographic magazines and recognized trees on the cover. With this, he realized that Dryland might really exist. After some time, Gregor appeared in his hot air balloon. He took them to a new makeshift atoll where the survivors of the first attack were living. At night, they discussed plans to find Dryland and agreed they needed Enola to do that. But some thought rescuing her was too dangerous. Luckily, the mariner said he would go and rescue the girl alone. He took a boat and found the oil tanker, secretly boarding it. He quietly killed anyone he encountered while the deacon prepared the crowd on deck for his speech. The deacon announced that they would start rowing to Dryland and sent his crew to release huge oars from the side of the tanker to save oil, not knowing that he had to decode the map first. When the smokers ran below deck, the mariner confronted the deacon, holding out a flare and threatening to ignite the oil reserves in the tanker unless he returned Enola. The deacon called his bluff, knowing it would destroy the ship. But to his surprise, the mariner dropped the flare into the oil reservoir. The tanker then exploded in flames and began to sink. In the chaos, the deacon took Enola and tried to escape with her on his plane, but the mariner stopped him with an old anchor cable before he could take off. He rescued the girl and they embraced. Meanwhile, Gregor appeared above them in his hot air balloon with Helen and the atoll enforcer. They quickly let down a rope for the mariner to escape. As he brought Enola to Helen, the deacon grabbed the rope to escape the sinking ship, but was kicked off by the mariner into the water. The deacon found a loose jet ski and used his gun to shoot the hot air balloon, shaking Enola loose and dropping her into the ocean. As he and some of his men rushed to capture Enola, the mariner made an unexpected bungee jump from the balloon to grab her, just as the deacon and his men collided on their jet skis and died in an explosion. As the tanker sank, the survivors saw the words Exxon Valdez printed on the stern. At that moment, Gregor managed to identify the tattoo on Enola's back as the coordinates in reverse. After a few days of flying, the group finally discovered Dryland, filled with vegetation, wildlife, and things they had never seen before. They also found a small hut with the remains of Enola's parents. The enforcer suggested they should follow ancient burial traditions and give Enola's parents a final resting place. While everyone enjoyed their time on Dryland, the mariner felt like he did not belong there. Instead, he thought the ocean was his true home and decided to build a new wooden trimaran to leave the land. Enola was upset by his choice, complaining that she did not want him to leave, but the girl finally understood. Helen and Enola said goodbye to him, but before he departed, the mariner promised to tell others about Dryland and lead them there. The movie ended with Helen and Enola climbing to the highest hill to watch him sail away, discovering a plaque that revealed they were standing on the top of Mount Everest.